All right, listeners, strap yourselves in. Today, we are diving deep, deep into the world of World at War 85, a war game that drops you right into a what-if scenario smack dab in the middle of the Cold War in 1985.
And you want to know how it works, right? We're going to break it all down, straight from the rule book, so get ready for a crash course.
Yeah, think of this as your own personal briefing, a peek behind the Iron Curtain, if you will. We're going to lay out the maps, the units, the whole shebang, World at War 85 style.
I love it already. And speaking of the rule book, it really doesn't waste any time setting the stage, you know? It's 1985, tensions are about as high as they can get, and NATO and the Warsaw Pact, well, they're practically staring each other down, ready to go at it. You can just feel that Cold War chill, can't you? But here's where it gets really interesting, right? This game, it puts you in the commander's seat, but not in some kind of big picture general kind of way.
This is no global thermonuclear war simulation.
Exactly. This is about platoon level combat. It's about the guys on the ground. That's right. Forget about those massive army maneuvers you see in the movies, those sweeping movements on a giant map. In World at War 85, you are down in the trenches. You're calling the shots for your tanks, your infantry squads, your artillery batteries. You're dealing with the nuts and bolts, the tactical nitty-gritty of it all.
You're in the thick of it, feeling the pressure of every decision, every move. Man, I'm already feeling the weight of command, and we're just getting started.
Okay, so the rulebook mentions these things called modules. What exactly are we talking about here? Are these like expansion packs or something?
Think of them more like self-contained battlefields, like little war stories within the larger World at War 85 universe.
Okay, so each module, it's like a different theater of war.
Exactly. Each one zeroes in on a particular historical operation, you know. So you've got a unique map for that module, specific units that fought there, and even rules that are tailored to that particular conflict. One day you could be slugging it out in the Fulda Gap in Germany, and the next you're facing a whole different kind of fight in the deserts of Afghanistan. So it's like having a portal to different Cold War hotspots all over the globe, right? Each with its own unique challenges and strategies. Man, they thought of everything. Okay, I'm with you so far. But let's talk about the actual game pieces themselves. How does World at War 85 actually represent all of this Cold War action on the tabletop? I see the rulebook mentioning these things called counters a lot.
Ah, yes, the counters. That's where the real magic starts to happen. See, the game uses these cardboard counters, and each one, it represents a specific unit on the map.
Okay, so I've got my infantry squads, my tank platoons, each represented by a counter.
You got it. And here's the thing. Each counter is like a little dossier, a mini profile for that unit. It tells you everything you need to know. How much firepower they have, how tough their armor is, how far they can move in one turn. It's all right there on that little piece of cardboard.
So these counters, they're more than just cardboard cutouts. They're these tiny little unit biographies packed with information.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. They're like mini military records right there in your hand.
I love it. This is where my inner history nerd gets really excited.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's break this down for our listeners who might not be fluent in military jargon, you know. What are some of the key stats we'll find on these counters, and what do they really mean when you're actually playing the game?
All right, so let's say you're looking at a counter for one of your tanks, right? One of the most important things you'll see is the armor value. Think of that like how tough your tank skin is, how much punishment it can take. The higher the armor value, the harder it is for the enemy to actually do any damage.
Makes sense. A tank with tougher armor is going to be harder to knock out, right?
Exactly. Now, on the other hand, you've got firepower. That's basically how much damage your unit can dish out, how much punch it packs.
So a high armor value means you can take a hit. High firepower means you can get one right back.
You got it. But here's the thing, right? Just like in real life, World at War 85 is all about using all your different units together, you know, combining their strengths. You don't want to just rely on your tanks to do all the work. You got to think about how they work with your infantry, your artillery.
Right, because every unit has its role to play, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of roles, terrain plays a big part too. You know?
I bet. All those hills and forests and rivers.
Exactly. A forest could hide your infantry from enemy tanks, but it could also make it tough for your own tanks to get a clear shot. Hills might give you the high ground, which is always good in a fight, but then again, it leaves you exposed. So there are trade-offs, just like in a real battle.
So even if you've got a killer strategy, a lucky roll for the enemy or a well-placed hill could really mess things up.
That's the thing about World at War 85. It's got that element of chance built right in. You roll dice to see how combat plays out, and sometimes lady luck is just not on your side.
Ugh, the fog of war. You never know what's going to happen. But it's not all just random chance, is it? I mean, there are ways to control the chaos, right? That's where these formation cards come in, am I right?
Bingo! The formation cards, those are like your lifeline to actually controlling your units and making things happen.
Okay, so they're not just for show. How do they actually work then?
So each card, it activates a certain group of your units. You know, the ones with the matching color band on their counter.
Hold on. Let me get this straight. So it's not like I can just move any unit I want whenever I want.
Nope, not in this game. You got to play the cards you're dealt, literally. You got to see which units are available to you that turn and make the most of it.
Ah, so each turn, you're kind of stuck with whatever that formation card gives you.
Yeah.
Got to adapt, think on your feet.
That's what makes it so much fun. You got to make those tough calls just like a real commander out there.
Okay, I can see how that would keep things interesting. So each card draw is like a mini challenge, right?
Exactly. You might draw a card, and boom, your armored spearhead is ready to roll. Or maybe you get stuck with a bunch of units that are out of position, and you got to figure out how to regroup and survive until your next turn, but there's more.
More. What else could there be?
World at War 85, it's got these special action rules, you
Yeah.
know? These are the things that can really shake things up on the battlefield.
Oh, okay. Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, let's say you absolutely need to take out a certain enemy position, right? Like it's make or break for your whole plan. You might be able to call in an artillery strike.
Ah, so you can rain down some serious firepower.
You bet. But it's not always so simple, you know? You got to make sure your own guys are out of the blast zone, or you can end up with some friendly fire incidents, and then there's always the chance that the enemy is dug in too deep and your artillery just can't reach them.
Man, so many decisions. I can already see how this game could really get inside your head, make you sweat a little. But we've been talking a lot about ground combat, tanks and infantry, all that. What about air power? Can I, like, call in airstrikes and stuff?
Oh, absolutely. You're not just stuck with ground troops in World at War 85. You can definitely call in some air power to spice things up.
All right, so tell me more about this air support. Do I get to, like, control squadrons of fighter jets, maybe engage in some epic dogfights?
Well, not exactly. World at War 85 keeps the focus on those tactical ground battles. Think of it more like you can call in close air support to give your troops a little extra firepower when they need it most.
Okay, so less Top Gun, more like a well-timed bombing run to break a stalemate, huh?
You got it. You've got these cards, close air support cards, and they're like your direct line to air superiority. Draw one of those at the right moment, and you can unleash a world of hurt on the enemy.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Raining down some explosive freedom. But it can't be as easy as just picking a target and watching the fireworks, right?
Of course not. Where's the fun in that? Just like in real warfare, there are risks involved, you know? Your opponent might have some anti-aircraft units hidden away, just waiting for a chance to turn your bombers into scrap metal.
Ah, so you got to be smart about when and where you call in those airstrikes.
Exactly. And don't forget about the weather. A little fog or rain can ground your air support faster than you can say mission scrubbed.
Wow, so there's a lot to consider, even with air power. You really got to pick your moments carefully. Man, it sounds like there's a real art to mastering World at War 85, you know? It's not just about knowing the rules, but about, like, instinct, timing, knowing when to take a risk and when to hold back.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's a game that rewards a sharp mind, a little cunning, and maybe a bit of luck sprinkled in. You've got to think ahead, try to anticipate your opponent's moves, and always be ready to adapt.
You've given us a lot to think about today. From those formation cards to the intricacies of combat, it's clear that World at War 85 is more than just your average roll the dice kind of game. It's got depth, it's got strategy, it's got history baked right in.
It's a real gem for wargame enthusiasts, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of World at War 85. We've covered a lot of ground today, but this is really just scratching the surface of what this game has to offer.
There's always more to explore, new strategies to try out, different battles to fight.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a game that will test your tactical thinking, transport you back to a pivotal moment in history, and maybe even make you sweat a little bit, World at War 85 might be right up your alley. Until next time, happy gaming, everyone!